to things like tarot cards, believing in ghosts, it's comforting to have answers for things which we will never have answers to.
Right.
Like the Big Bang Theory is our best guess. I'm not convinced that even that doesn't answer where we came from. And I'm willing to accept the possibility that some divine creator, if the Big Bang Theory did happen, some entity caused it, right? But the idea that if that entity did cause all of evolution and everything, somehow this specific brand of religion is accurate, I just don't fathom. It's so clear to me that human beings have that innate desire to answer questions they can't. Okay. And go on.
Okay, so just on this point, let's take one step at a time.
Yes.
Do you think that going back to your original point about morality and the way that we have a gradient with other species, none of these things would undermine the general concept of God, not say a particular religion?
No, right? I agree with you.
Okay.
Like I'm far more willing to exist, say that some outside force beyond our understanding kicked off particles and atoms and everything. However, when we distill it down so much to the specific level of here's who you should marry, here's who you shouldn't, that is such a human-centric view that I think comes from a place of humans coming up with it. The idea that humans are this separate thing from animals and that we aren't just a stage that's smart enough to come up with all this stuff is not logical to me.
Okay, so you have a bit of a quite a nuanced position, right? I can see it's a nuanced position. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions to clarify your trail of thought. I'm not challenging, I'm just trying to clarify. Would you say the belief in a tree of life, say, that all of life began off with a single cell, evolved into all the different sort of cells, and therefore even our morality, which you were speaking about earlier, the morality of ants, of chimpanzees, of bonobos, of Homo sapiens, or Homo naledi's, whatever it is, it's all on some sort of gradient. Would you say that none of these concepts, whether a tree of life or bush of life or the different concepts of morality, none of this would actually undermine the general concept of God?
No, I agree. The thing I was disagreeing with directly was the distinction between humans and animals, and that God has instilled in humans specifically that morality. I think if you had said God had instilled morality in the animal kingdom on a gradient, I'd be slightly more willing to accept that, but even then I wouldn't. Because you take lizards, cold-blooded animals, and you take mammals, we can recognize morality in mammalian animals much more so than lizards, so, right? And I would ask you, why is that?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting point. Sorry, let me just continue this conversation, sorry. So when it comes down to, say, lizards, bonobos, or anything else, there is nothing that I believe about their morality which would contradict what you're saying about a gradient, because we believe there is a sense of morality in birds. We do believe there's a now what you may be referring to, I could be wrong, is there's certain religions that say the only morality that exists is the morality in Homo sapiens, and non-homos do not have that morality. I don't believe that.
No, I might be misconceiving. From what it seemed as if morality in humans specifically was instilled in God, and in animals it's not the same. So am I correct in believing that the morality systems in animals in general is all instilled from God?
Yeah, okay. All morality that exists, whether in ants, in humans, in whatever it is down to God.
Fine, okay.
Now, one of the things we know it from an Islamic metaphysical point of view is that God's mercy has been sent down onto earth, and that mercy is the reason why when you find a chick taking care of its offspring, or a human being helping a stranger, it's all part of that mercy. Sure. So we're not, I know exactly what you're challenging, and I challenge that too, the idea that only humans are moral and animals do not have a sense of morality or moral agency.
No, I'm glad we got to that, because sure, so now we're on the same page, that morality in animals, in general, us included, is all instilled from God. And then I would ask why the distinction between them, and it's not just about human versus the rest of the animal kingdom, why the distinction in morality, which is observable quite easily, between cold-blooded lizards and mammals.
What do you mean by distinction? I don't see what your point is.
If you have a lizard as a pet, right, it will not be affectionate towards you. They have much more aggressive behaviors with each other.
Or sharks, they kill their offspring before they're born. Yeah.
Whereas mammals have generally more what we as humans would consider compassionate nature.
Like bonobos.
Do you accept that?
Yes, but what it is, it's not as clear cut as that.
Okay.
There are some species which are further related to us than, say, our primate supposed relatives, and those animals can exhibit behavior which is far morally superior than even sometimes Homo sapiens do to each other.
Okay.
So the argument being made is not the case that human beings are the only ones with morality.
Sure.
But there is one thing that Islam does say, which I'm open about, that Islam says human beings are exceptional when it comes to us. We are different. Even from a moral perspective, we're different.
So even if we factor out humans, why the distinction in the observable morality of lizards versus mammals?
I wouldn't have a problem with that theologically. I would not have a problem.
But do you have any guess as to why that might be?
God knows. I don't know.
Exactly. And to me, this is an implicit problem.
But I would say
is that anything unexplainable has an immediate backdoor escape route of I'm not meant to understand this.
No, I never said that.
Okay.
It could be that we come to some sort of understanding in a few decades, in a few hundred years. We don't know.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is theologically neutral. Right? It doesn't sway towards atheistic arguments or anything else. All it is saying is that there is a sense of morality that we can see in other species, and sometimes the moral systems that we see in I'm trying to think of, I keep thinking of bonobos, but it could be something like ants, for example. Ants have a very sophisticated society. Now, interestingly, sociologically, they're closer to us than they are to chimpanzees. Chimpanzees may be a group of 100. Ants, you have millions living together, and they have an economy, they have warfare, they have battlefield medicine, they have trade, they have funerals, they have all these things. Okay, so it's possible that species are intellectual, it's possible that species have morality, but the Quran and Islam does say human beings are exceptional.
Yeah.
Is there a problem that you have with that?
So I would then ask, so we say humans are exceptional. I don't see why, other than the Quran saying that, any evidence that our behaviors could not conceivably have evolved through evolution just the way as ants. You compound a more complex life form, the behaviors will become more complex, right? And I think that, surely you don't.
No. The point I'm confused about, and I said this earlier to your friend, theistically, there's nothing incompatible about an agency and a mechanism.
Yes, exactly. And that got back to my point of, if you were saying that God had just created atoms and elements and they had all come to be, fine. But the idea that somehow morality is at the same time a byproduct of this divine mechanism, but also humans have their own special version of it, which requires special rules like who can marry who and things like this, which to me are quite clearly products of their time.
Okay, I see the point you're making now. I just want to make 2 points. I don't believe morality evolves like that. I don't.
Okay, and that's the point that I was meaning.
The point I was making is that there is nothing incoherent about believing there is morality in other species and humans, and there's nothing incoherent about someone believing in God and believing morality evolved. However, I don't believe morality evolved.
Okay, and this is why I've been drilling down to these different.
Now we've come to the wire. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, if we strip it back to the most basic thing of do not kill, do you believe that, abstracting any of this out, for an organism to kill its own kind is evolutionarily disadvantageous for that species?
Yep.
Yeah? Right. And given that that's the case, do you not think, forgetting any other morals, that not killing could conceivably within that system, not killing your own kind would become something genetically encoded?
I believe in that.
Prosperity?
I believe in that. In fact,
And so, if you believe that some morals can...
Conceptually.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Some morals can come about evolutionarily and some don't.
Okay.
Is that correct?
No. I don't believe morality came through that evolutionary process.
Yeah.
But I don't deny what you're saying, that it can be explained hypothetically using that. But I just want to ask you something.
Yeah.
Say not killing your offspring is advantageous, it gives you fitness advantages. However, there are two current views. There is the view of the selfish gene, the central dogma, which is the W.D. Hamilton view, and which Dawkins and the like promoted. And then there's E.O. Wilson's group selection. Do you agree with me the same phenomena can be interpreted in two different ways scientifically?
I understand what you're saying. So the outcome can be used to argue either point. I would say yes.
Yeah. But I would add to that, metaphysically, someone else can make a third claim.
Okay, so
do you see my point?
I see your point, but I think the problem is, to me, and this is a broader argument, the idea of a metaphysical point is, to me, self-justifying. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah. I mean that you can invent a third thing that is created from this mechanism, and I could, in theory, create infinitely many theoretical versions using that same method, right? And so why is yours the one that I should believe?
So would you agree with me that I would need some form of justification, and so would group selection proponents and selfish gene proponents, for their perspective? You can't just say, oh, because it's compatible and coherent, therefore I'm right. You need more justification. Each view does.
Yes, I do agree with that to a point, but I think that single selection, in which you're saying is survival of the specific creature versus the good of the group as a whole.
Oh, by the way, that view doesn't exist. Individual selection is not what I'm referring to.
Okay.
I'm referring to selfish gene perspective, which is not about individuals but about genetics. So look, let's go through a process of elimination, because David Stove was a philosopher who challenged, even though he's an atheist, he challenged the Darwinian conception of morality.
Wait, sorry, what? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll wrap up in a minute.
Sure.
But,
so there's a process of elimination. You talking to me, or say, I believe in this. I believe if I walked down the road, I fell over, I believe you'd help me. Now, since you would help me, there's three ways we can explain this behavior which doesn't fit the standard selfish gene perspective. Because it's not advantageous to you to help a different organism. So therefore, there's three ways it could be explained currently. There's kin selection theory, reciprocal altruism theory, and the expanding circle theory. Okay? Kin selection says you're helping me because you're my kin and you're helping your genes to survive. That's not true in this case. Reciprocal altruism theory is you're helping me because eventually I may help you, but I don't think that's why you're helping me. The third is the expanding circle thesis, which Peter Singer's been pushing out, which is natural selection was there to help your kin, and they were closest to you, so over time you have an expanding circle and this type of thing. If I can show that these three views are insufficient for that piece of data, then I can make an argument for why morality is better explained by my metaphysical worldview than by a naturalism.
Now that is what I thoroughly disagree with.
Okay.
I think the idea.
But do you see it's a justified view? Whether you agree it's justified. Sorry. Do you agree it's there's a justification being attempted?
Oh, sure. There is a justification being attempted. I think it's a quite flimsy justification.
Okay. Why?
Because how many? If we take, and this comes back to my point of your specific brand of this, I could, in the same vein as you, posit infinitely many variants of a similar thing explaining it, right? And just because those don't explain it doesn't mean that the one that I've just posted does.
I agree with you.
And to me personally, when you talk about helping someone up, I think compounding intelligence of an organism, social environment and learning are all huge factors in that, which I don't think will really
so
consider.
Look, to get to the point, I don't disagree with you, but that's not the argument I was making.
Right.
The argument I was not making was this, and this is wrong, therefore the fourth is correct. I need to make the argument this, and this is wrong, and this has another reason for why it's justified. This.
Yes.
Do you see that
So in my view, this and this being incorrect
is not sufficient?
is not sufficient.
I agree with
if
that.
you can also say this one is provable empirically, which is a dirty word around
Okay,
here.
okay, but
All right, I'm sorry. I do have
it's
to
really
go.
great speaking
Well,
to you. I'm
it's
here every
nice-
week. What's your
it's
name
nice-
again?
Alex.
Alex Suboor.
It's nice to talk to you. It was nice to speak to all of you.
I'm here every Sunday, so maybe next week.
Maybe.
Have a nice day.
That was good. It's a good discussion.
How are you, man? You okay? How's things? Good? Where have you been?
Literally.
Yeah? Okay.